Please join me in welcoming Marc and Steve.
The whole point of this was to create the ultimate oasis of beauty for the luxury customer, and that's why we moved it upstairs. When you think about the online versus the offline experience, we don't need AI in our stores, we have I. We have living, breathing, 4,500 style advisors in our stores. So the focus for Saks in the luxury space is really kind of convergence between tech and this living, breathing selling associate, and that's what we're focused on.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Steve Sadove, that's Marc Metrick. This is a pretty unique opportunity for the two of us, and I don't think we would have done it if it weren't for, we have so much respect for Jay and what he's done at the Baker Center, and we have so many friends in the audience. But in all the years that, I think Marc and I go back over 15 years, and I think he was my merchandising planning VP or whatever, back 15, 20 years ago. And it's only the second time that we've ever done a fireside chat together, and we thought we would, this was such a wonderful venue that we would talk a little bit about what's happening in retail today. And if you look in the audience, and we have so many of the leaders of today's businesses as well as people who have been in the industry for a while. So it's a great mix and opportunity to talk about the changing landscape of retail. So probably would be remiss without, it wasn't the plan of the start of this, but given that we're seeing the headlines yesterday and today on authentic brands and Saks, someone would really give me a hard time if I didn't ask Marc, why don't you talk a little bit about what's going on with Saks and Barney's?
Let me walk you through the deal piece by piece, Steve.
Sure.
First, of course, I'm not going to be able to talk about that right now, but really what's important for me to kind of message is that, HBC's been public with this, and we're out and about with the fact that Saks is a very important growth vehicle for the company. And really being hyper-focused, my team and I, Helena and our corporate team, really focused on driving and maximizing the Saks business through the new luxury, which is what we're going to talk about today. So that's the focus for me.
That's a good way to give a non-answer. So let's start talking a little bit about luxury and what's going on. And the way, again, just from an observer perspective, the luxury market in the United States has been relatively flat for the last few years. You have individual brands, obviously, some doing better than others, but you have a category that's flat. Yet Saks has been putting up 9 quarters in a row of growth on the top line and on the bottom line. Talk a little bit about the category first in terms of how you view the luxury category, what's going on in the environment, and then how you look at it in terms of Saks winning in that environment.
Sure. I think the most important thing for us to realize is that, and this is what we started a couple years ago with the new luxury, is focus. And being very specific about what we're doing, who we are, and what we mean to our customer. And I view this as a share game. To your point, there's not some massive growth going on with the luxury consumer. I think if you look at the marketplace and you see what's happening, if you look at Porter's 5 Forces, for example, which is what we did when we set the strategy out a couple of years ago, we look at it, threat of new entrants was not something that we worried about in the luxury space in 2002. And when you look at over the last 15 years plus, others have come on. And so many of us have spent time chasing after different strategies and different initiatives. And what we wanted to do at Saks was we said, here's who we're going to be. And we are going to be a fashion authority. We are going to deliver exceptional service by creating a very deep connection with our consumer. And we're going to make Saks the hero in everything that we do. And I think that that's paid off for us.
So talk about strategy from a channel perspective to do that. So you have whatever the number is, 30% or so of your business is now online. How do you think about the role of channels today from a consumer perspective and then from your perspective?
Sure, I think, look, the consumer is obviously, and we've spent too much time here in the US talking about the US consumer too broadly. And I think the luxury consumer is a little bit different than everybody else, whereas I think there's a lot of store going on there. There's a lot of experience. When you're spending the kind of money that we're asking people to spend, there needs to be theater. And and I always say, you don't stream Hamilton on Netflix. You go to the theater and watch it, and then maybe you download the soundtrack on iTunes and listen to it there. So it's really being there for him or her, how they want it and when they want it, and that's what we've really focused on. So for the store, it's about, again, using our stylists and our in-house associates, okay? They are the key differentiator for us against the pure play, okay? It is creating an environment, and it's not just our New York flagship, which I can talk about all day, but we've touched so many of our stores and made them much more meaningful and connected to the new consumer. The new luxury consumer wants to feel comfortable. They want to feel at home. They don't want to feel like it's some cold environment of luxury. They want to feel warm. So we're doing that. We're changing our store environments. We're infusing data into everything we do with our associates because, again, I think that for us to win, it's not going to have a channel strategy. It's going to have a consumer strategy focused on creating an ecosystem for each individual customer to shop with us, okay, when and how they want to. And that's a hackneyed statement, but it means so much more than it did 10 years ago when omnichannel was the buzzword. She now no longer, we're so used to not starting our conversations over again. So at Saks, how do we build that infrastructure and have it so that when I'm shopping on Saks.com, my associate that I'm affiliated with in the store knows how I'm shopping, knows what I'm experiencing, knows what I'm looking for, knows what I need. So it's really creating that and creating kind of a way so that her shopping experience never stops between online and offline.
How do you think about the investment requirements that come into play? So we're talking about analytics, we're talking about the ability to do omni-channel. We'll get into talking about the CapEx requirements in terms of the stores. But how do you, in a business that is very focused, how do you think about the trade-offs that you have to make in terms of investments?
Yeah, and look, that's it's a tough one that we face every day. And you had an op-ed, it feels like 10 years ago, but I think it was 8 months ago, when you talked about the investment in data and analytics is what retailers are facing today that maybe 15 years ago or 20 years ago, it was the investment in the internet. And those who decided to invest back then are in a much different place as stores. And I think that now we're facing this same tipping point. And so I think you do need a lot more scale than's ideal to really play in this new data world that we're in, to really truly get after it, to make things easier because department stores aren't competing against each other anymore. We're competing with everything. Netflix and how that talks to you and communicates with you and makes recommendations to you, that's what you're thinking. Starbucks and how you buy things in their loyalty program and how you shop and how when you come up on their app, it knows what you order all the time. That's who you're competing with. So investment there is key. To the extent you have the ability, you need to invest it, and you need to make decisions knowing that while it might not pay off today, 10 years from now, it'll be impossible to catch up if you don't do it right now.
So it's hard not to talk about Saks and without getting into the investment and the renovation that you did to New York, and I assume everybody has seen it. It's someone who lived there and has been a part of that company for so many years, I find it masterful and just an amazing remake of what was truly a heritage site. So how do you think about it, the investment required, the signals it sends, and the impact that it's had on the business?
Look, the Fifth Avenue flagship, as you know, but it's the beacon of everything we are. You weren't going to be able to reposition Saks. You weren't going to be able to enter into the new luxury, okay, without really changing that store. That's everything we are starts there and ports out to the rest of the country. So I think we had to do that. And a lot of what we've done is all about becoming less transactional, becoming a much more emotionally connected retailer with our customer, okay? And to do that, we had to do some of the things, or to become that, we had to do some of the things that we did. I love the response that we've had. We don't speak, obviously, about how the stores individually perform, but we feel good about the investments we've made and what we're seeing, and all different parts of it. So it's been a pretty exciting moment for us. And like I said to you, all you need is $250 million and a little imagination. You could do the rest from there.
I wish we had $250 million when we were running the business to spend on it. No, I mean, it's remarkable what's going on. So let's just talk a little bit about the New York landscape. And so you have an environment in New York where international tourism is weak, I think. Numbers I've seen would tell you that tourism's probably tracking down 10% or something like that. You've got Nordstrom coming into New York. You've got the Hudson Yards. You've got all the investment that's going on downtown. How do you think about the competitive environment? And by the way, separate from that, and we'll get into things like the rental and the resale and all the changing dynamics of the business. How do you think about New York?
Yeah, I think, and going back to your prior question, we needed to do something to up our game. I think you've watched the movie before, where we've been here for 94 years, and we could have rested on those laurels and let those guys come to town, and they would have done some damage, and it would have been okay. Or we could have stuck our flag into the ground and said, "This is our city," and that's why we did what we did with the store. What we're seeing right now, obviously, it's a big city. There's lots of tourism that comes in. Obviously, that's a conversation to have. We do believe that Saks, over the years, and it's something you and I experienced together, was probably underpenetrated into the local customer, believe it or not. And there was opportunity to go after that and grab share. So we had to do something differently with our assortments and our product and our marketing. So I feel very good about how we're positioned. And you can't be arrogant and you can't have a blind spot. But what you can say is, if this is a gunfight, I'm bringing a bazooka. And I think that's what we did here. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens, I think, in a couple of days when the other guys open up.
It's going to be interesting.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about rental and resale. And they're different, and during the course of the day, we're going to have some of the great leaders of those businesses here. A number of your competitors have forged alliances and are playing in the space. They're bringing rental into their stores, or they're having resale in the stores. How do you think about let's start with the resale business, the impact that it has on luxury brands, the value perception, and the role that Saks, how you look at the resale business?
Sure. Look, I think the resale business, it's certainly, it's a $30 billion or so business. It's, when you think about where it sits with our consumer, the true luxury consumer, about half of them are interested in getting involved in that part of the ecosystem. So it's relevant, okay? And it's growing double digits, slightly over 10%. So it's important. It is an interesting... it plays an interesting role right now. And I think it actually does the opposite. I think it enhances a brand value. I think the fact that there is The fact that somebody can sell something for, even if it's 50 or 60% of what they paid for it 2 years or 3 years prior, actually shows it's proof of concept for luxury. So as much as I have to think about it as a competitor, because it is, okay, it's a very important part of the luxury ecosystem that is not going to go away. This is not a fad. I think this is a way of doing things. And what we are doing at Saks right now on the re-commerce side and the rental side, and rental, by the way, a little bit different because it's a little bit more nascent, or it is nascent in luxury. But luxury is a very dangerous word to use when you think about what we sell and what we offer and who our customer is. Both of these businesses are new ways of commerce. They are not going to be in and out. So we have to think about how they're going to play with Saks and what the best way to do it. What we've made the commitment to ourselves to do is to focus on our core business. And right now, we still have work to do on our brand, on our customer experience, and how we go to market. And we're going to do that first before we do these other two types of commerce. But it's going to be interesting to watch.
You know, I think it really is interesting on the resale. Take a brand, like, you know, if you bought a car, you always think about, I buy a Mercedes, I paid whatever it is, $70,000 for the car, and I know I can resell it for $35,000, and that's how you think about the value of that car. I buy a Chanel handbag, whatever it costs, $4,000 or $5,000, and if I start thinking about the resale value of that as being whatever, 50, 60% of it, and then I buy another brand X, and the resale value may be different, just as the resale of a car becomes different, you actually may end up getting into understanding brand equity of individual brands differently over time, depending upon the relative resale values of the brand. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves from the brand side of the equation.
Yeah, and the thing we have to watch, and you bring up cars, because it's an interesting analogy, the leasing of cars over the years, which if you go back, you know, to when you and my father were doing all this. That was a shot, by the way. People bought cars. Maybe they financed them and they sold them back on a blue book value, but they bought them. And then with the advent of leasing, that kind of changed everything because it made everything more expensive, because it made everything more accessible. And we have to watch that too, because we need to keep the true essence of what the product is, and the price value proposition needs to hold true, or else we're going to get way out of control. A car you're leasing now from Mercedes or BMW, maybe in today's dollars, 30 years ago, would have been $50,000, and now it's $80,000. And that's simply because you can lease it, and there's this whole secondary market, and so the consumer's not necessarily winning as much as they think they are.
So some of your competitors have decided to go aggressively into the rental market. And some of the brands actually are playing in the rental market themselves and viewing it as a way of getting people who may not go and pay the price point that gets them into the brands. How are you thinking about that as an opportunity for Saks?
I think for Saks, I look at it less as I want to rent because I want to do more volume. And I look at the rental business for us, to the extent we get involved with it, which we will, it's a matter of when, it is there for the customer as being a part of their life and us being there and being relevant for them. Because the effort that we've undertaken right now at Saks is to be sticky. Okay, the hackneyed term now is personalization. That term everyone's using and they're throwing it around very loosely. Stickiness is what I want Saks to mean. So if you like to rent, we need to be there for you in that way. And that's how I think about it. As far as what it's doing, again, similar to the re-commerce piece, it's creating more aspiration. And Saks, as you know, trades on that. We trade on aspiration. What we are doing is we don't sell things to people that they need. Okay, so our entire existence is around creating aspiration. And if the re-commerce world and the rental, if these things can do that, we want to make sure that we're there to meet their needs.
So you made a comment that about an op-ed I wrote about sort of the next wave is going to be in the analytics world, that 10, 15 years ago, it was about making the investments in what we called omni-channel, and that was the bet that the leadership of my generation was making. And I believe that the next wave is going to be the investments in analytics. And I guess I like to simplistically think on a scale of 1 to 10, as you think about the analytic capabilities that you all have at Saks now, and what you need to be doing over the next several years in order to really be able to do that personalization, to do the understanding of that customer at a level of one, be able to buy against those needs. I mean, all the things that come with analytics. Where on the journey do you think you are right now?
Oh, we're on the beginning of the journey for sure. And it's sort of like if you go back to 1998 and somebody would say, how many engineers and development people do you have working at Saks? And we would have said, we have 3, because we have cash registers that break. Right. And we have a mailing list file that we keep in CRM. And then you fast forward and you have almost as many engineers and development people as you do buyers, right, working in the company one way or the other. I look at data as the same way. I think we are in the early stages. It is not a function right now that exists. When somebody's coming to interview at Saks, they are interviewing for our merchandising programs. We want to be a buyer. We want to be, eventually the goal is to have lots of people that are focused on data and analytics.
I mean, and I think you're absolutely right. I know there's going to be a session this afternoon on talent and culture. The question, how do we go about, it's an industry question in terms of capabilities and resources, but it's also a recognition of how do we go about bringing how do we get some of that talent into the organizations?
Yeah, and I think we talk a lot about this at the NRF.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is we need help from everybody in this room, and we need help from Wharton, and we need help from department stores and retailing we need to rebrand this industry. People don't think about it like there's people doing M&A in our company. There's people doing real estate in our company. There's people that are doing computer science and data and analytics in our company. So we need to remarket what this industry is, get it out there, re-platform it to get people excited and to get the talent and to get the thoughtfulness. And we have great people now, and we have people that are interested in coming are amazing. But to get more, we have to really get people excited about the industry and the consumer and everything that's going on. Because if I am a very, very sharp and smart analytics type of person, where am I thinking about retail and department stores on my career map? I'm not right now. And I think we need to do a lot of work to get them there to be thinking about it.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. So every CEO has a few years, 2, 3 years to sort of make their mark, create the story that's going to be the legacy of what they did while they were at company X. Talk a little bit about, as you're framing the legacy that you want to see Saks to be the Metrick legacy for what you've created in that company. How's that going to play as the elevator speech?
Yeah, we constantly wrestle between the sharp edge between folly and legacy. So I don't want to be the guy who moved beauty off the main floor. I think it's about, for me, the elevator pitch is going to be about, look, we essentially repositioned Saks Fifth Avenue. And we've made it the fashion authority. We've made Saks the hero. And we've truly elevated its positioning in the U.S. luxury landscape over the last couple of years. So that's the story I want to be telling.
To me, it's great to see a 94-year-old, I guess that's what you said the age of this thing is, to be as vibrant and as fresh and young in the eyes or in the minds of the consumer. It's very different environment now when, you think about online, re-commerce, resale, rental, all of the varying tentacles that you've got to play with. And the notion for any of these brands to be focused as you are against what you want that legacy to be, I think is pretty critical. I think we have 2 minutes, so should we we're supposed to give 5 minutes for the audience to ask questions. We can keep going if you don't have any.
Hi. How are you using data for product selection? How did the merchants use data to make better informed decisions as opposed to just intuition?
I think right now, for the data analytics side of product selection, we're much more focused on just our financial decisions. So that's around assortment size, depth and breadth, and how we're investing and how we're building it by brand. We're not yet using data, which, again, it's early days, as to identifying trend and consumer demand. It's also going to create an issue because we buy so far out. But we certainly are using data in a much more meaningful way right now on how we're building our assortments and what kind of investments we're making.
Can you just tell us about your perspective on paid memberships in your space?
Yeah, it's a new thought, and it's interesting because if you think about Saks Plus, it's $250 to join. but you get a $150 gift card and $200 in alterations credits. So I don't know if you're really paying. Don't quote me. But what the genesis was is research kept telling us people are intimidated to come into Saks and ask for help because they don't want to. They'll feel like they're going to be pushed to spend or they're being judged. It's just this psychological thing that people get when they walk into probably any luxury retailer. And then we were thinking, if somebody pays for something, even if they're really not, but they pay for it, they believe all of a sudden it's their God-given right to use the stylist. Because with this program, we also assign you a stylist. And people who use stylists in our store spend a very significant multiplier of what they spend when they're unaided. So that was the genesis behind this, was to create stickiness. If you're walking by a store and you need index cards for your son's 4th grade school project that's due in a week and a half, you'll pick up those index cards. You probably will not. You'll probably say, you know what? I'm going to get Jet Black to send them to me because I paid for Jet Black to be able to send them to me. Or I'm going to get them on Amazon. That's stickiness. That's use. That's God-given right to use a retailer. And that's what we're trying to do with Saks Plus. And so far, early days are, it's been a lot of fun.
Hello. Can I ask one question, please? I just need to understand, because I didn't understood very well the resale business and the rental market. If the democratization of luxury gives you the proper positioning of Saks.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
The question is, the democratization of luxury that you have with the rental business and with the resale, is giving you the right positioning of Saks.
The democratization of luxury is something that we sort of need to embrace. I'm actually, at Saks, we don't think of ourselves as this highfalutin brand. We need to be very accessible. As long as the product is there, the fashion is there, and the quality is there, I embrace it and have no problem, and I think I welcome it.
I think we're out of time. Thank you all very much.